High ticket closers that are making between $5,000 and $10,000 in commission that are looking to take their numbers up to the $20,000 to $30,000 a month mark. You have no excuse not to watch this video in its entirety, especially if you clicked on it in the first place to improve your sales skills. If you're not familiar with myself, my name's Ethan. I went from having no prior sales experience to making over $30,000 a month in commission as a high ticket closer, and I've cash collected over $56,062 in a single day. So grab a pen and paper, take some notes, and I promise you, if you begin to implement some of these advanced sales techniques, you'll break through every sales plateau that you've ran into up to now and finally get to the commission you deserve. Let's jump into the call review.
You effectively have to go through this process every single time before you handle the objection. So the mistake that a lot of closers make is an objection will be brought up, and then they'll immediately begin to think of how can I handle this objection and reframe this objection and get this person out their own way. All you're really doing is jumping down this person's neck immediately when they're already in a position with heightened anxiety, stress, and nerves. So we need to dispel or diffuse the situation firsthand before we then go to cutting the wires to diffuse the bomb itself, is the best way I can put it. The way we do that is by the RAISE. So that stands for relax, assess, isolate, shift, empower. They're the 5 steps that you go through. Do you need to do these in this exact order every single time? No. It's not like if you do isolate before obsess, then you've completely flunked it. But the way in which it would work more naturally is to do it in this order regardless. So the very first step is to relax. Number 1, when you drop the price on your call, you have effectively pulled the pin on a flashbang grenade and just rolled it into the room with them, regardless of the energy that you've had up to this point, because these individuals, dependent on what you're selling, might never have spent that amount of money on themselves in their life. This is literally the first time they're ever doing something, and you're usually scared or hesitant or uncertain when you're doing something for the first time. That is a natural human response, so you can't blame them for it. What we do here, we do not shift our composure whatsoever. That is critical. Your depth of breath, your posture, the way you're seated, your tonality, all of that matters even more now than it did earlier in the call, which is why we want to maintain that consistent state from the very beginning of the call to the very end of the call. As when the objections come up, they think this guy isn't even phased. He's not fussed whatsoever now that price is on the table, because he's not attached to the outcome. He's not attached to the sale. That's what people need to feel. Best way to go about this, I effectively always just use that first line that I've put in there. Like, I don't use these other 2. I just put them in those placeholders or examples. Whenever somebody says an objection, like, oh, all well and good, I just need to go away and think about it. All well and good, I just need to go away and speak to my partner. All well and good, I mean, it's just, that's just quite a lot of money. I will always just acknowledge what they've said. So it'll be like, okay, yeah, I mean, makes sense. It's an important decision. And then depending on what they've said, one of these will fit. So it'll be, what do you mean by like you need to go away and think about it? Or when you say you need to go away and think about it, I guess, like, what's the purpose of that? That would probably be the more natural one to think about it. Or when you say you need to go away and think about it, like, what's actually coming up for you? Now, all of these would apply to whatever objection they've given if it is a potential smokescreen. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but I need to go away and think about it isn't an objection, because we don't know what that actually means. So all you need to ask yourself is, do I fully understand and comprehend exactly what they mean with the objection they have given? If the answer isn't yes, then you still need to assess. Simple as. Until you've gotten to the real objection. So you can just keep going through this assess phase until you've peeled the layers back to what it actually means. So let's say it was, I need to go away and think about it. When you say like you need to go away and think about it, I guess what's the purpose of that? I mean, we can just do a quick role play. Who wants to like unmute quickly? Go on, Tom. So
Wait, do you want
Tom,
me to
just
prospect?
yeah, just say like, no, this is all well and good. I just need to go away and think about it.
Cool. Yeah, no, it looks great. Just need to think about it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, this is an important decision. When you say you need to go away and think about it, like, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah, just obviously it's a big decision. It's a lot of money. Just want to make sure it's the right thing.
Okay, like when you say a lot of money, like, how do you mean?
Oh, well, you know, like the investment, like it's a decent amount of money, at least for where I'm at right now. So I just need to go and think about whether I'm, willing to spend that.
Okay. When you say like where you're at right now, is that just from a purely financial perspective, savings wise, or what do you mean there?
Yeah, I guess so. Like that's like all my savings pretty much.
Okay. And in regard to actually moving forward with something like this, aside from just the amount in and of itself and the finances, is there anything else that's holding you back or you're uncertain
Um, I mean, that's a big part of it. There's always like, you know, I obviously want to make sure it's going to work as well. Like, that's a big thing. So I'll probably go away and do some like more research on you guys.
Okay. In regard to like understanding how it's going to work after everything we've been through, are you not wholeheartedly confident that working together we could get you to XYZ result that you're after?
Um, I think like there's a good chance it could. It's just like, it's never 100%, I guess.
Okay. Do you feel as though you need to be 100% with a decision before you can make it in life?
Um, I guess you can't be, but as close to as possible.
Okay. I mean, with you saying there that we can't be, I mean, I would agree with you there. I don't think we can ever be 100% certain with anything. But I mean, what level of certainty do you feel you need to have before you can move forward?
Just like it's hard to quantify, but just as much as possible, really.
Mhm. And what's holding you back from feeling as though you have that certainty with this decision after everything we've spoken about up to now?
Um, I guess just because I haven't been able to do it before. It's a new thing for me.
Okay, boom. So that's like a whole nother objection now about him doing something for the first time, right? Which we would then go to like this one we could do. First time. Boom. So there you go. Then I'd go through that whole word track. But what I wanted to use that as an example for, because we went a bit further, right? We just kind of went through a fair few steps there. I just wanted to highlight how Tom started with saying he needs to think about it. I said, when you say you need to think about it, what's the purpose of that? He said, it's a lot of money. I then said, a lot of money? How do you mean? Because I need to think about it isn't a real objection. I don't understand what you mean. A lot of money isn't a real objection either. Because when you say a lot of money, what does that mean? That could mean so many different things to different people. Is it, it's just a lot of money, I've never invested that much into myself? Is it a lot of money, I do not have that money? All sorts of different variables could be in place, right? So you will always stay on assess until you get to the actual objection, which was Tom saying, that would effectively be all of my savings. I'm like, okay, that's a real objection. Then I go to isolate. Okay, aside from just the finances, then, and you mentioned in there that it would be effectively all your savings at the moment, is there anything else that's holding you back or you're uncertain on? Tom actually did give me another objection here. So then I had to go into that as well, right? But usually, I would say for the most part, most people only have one objection. Like when you isolate the objection, they'll normally say that's about it. If they do give you another objection like Tom did, you have to handle that as well. You have to unpack that. You have to unpack each objection that you get and think of it like you're unwrapping a present per objection, and you have to unpack both of them completely. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to close them. Simple as.
Just a question on
The
that.
Go on.
Because I know obviously we put the investment to one side. Would you handle the belief side of things, which is I haven't done it before,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do it, and then you go back to the investment, or
Yeah,
would you? Yeah, okay.
exactly. 100%. So like all I would have done there with you, if we'd have just carried on the role play, is you said there, well, it's just the first time I've done it. That's where I'm lacking like the certainty effectively. I would have just gone down that whole belief frame with you and said, well, like when it comes to you doing something for the first time before, has there been a time in your life where you were slightly uncertain and you were doing something for the first time, but you actually went ahead and did it anyway? And then,
Yeah.
you could give me a whole story. I go down that. I say, and if you hadn't taken the step despite uncertainty, would you now have the skills and the knowledge that you earned from doing that? No. I mean, how would it have made you feel if you allowed that fear and uncertainty to stop you from ever expanding your horizons? Oh, I would have been blah, 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 right? So can you see how if we allow that hesitation to stop us now, are you ever actually going to be able to get to the goals that you set for yourself in business? No. Okay. So speaking of the finances,
Mm.
and then we're back to the finances. You see how like then I just naturally will go to the other objection that he brought up earlier, because we need to unpack them both. You literally have to think of it like, okay, one objection, two objection, three objection. I'm going to do this one, then I'm going to do that one, then I'm going to do this one.
One more quick question. Let's say the finances wasn't in the objections. One thing I maybe struggled to do is know when to ask for the close again. So it's like you've gone through the, like how would that have made you feel if you'd have let that held you back? Okay, and then maybe so it's like you could do like a what do we need to do differently moving forward? But then where would you go from there to like ask for the close?
You only ask for the close again when you have like double tied down certainty into them. Like
Okay.
I will, so the strategy that I will always use is no matter what, the step that you cannot miss, like if you miss this step, you have completely fumbled objection handling, is this reaffirming the value. If you do not reaffirm the value before shifting their perspective or going into their beliefs, you are cooked. You don't have any leverage in the conversation. So the way in which you go about that is, of course, makes sense. It's an important decision. When you say you need to think about it, what's the purpose? It's a lot of money. How do you mean? It's the first time I've invested that much into myself. Okay. I mean, aside from this being like the first time you've ever invested into yourself, is there anything else that is holding you back or you're uncertain of? No, it genuinely is just that. Really, like this is just a big step for myself. Okay. I mean, before we look into that together, then you take them down this. So I get them to buy into the fact that they believe what we offer can solve their problems. They have to agree to that, plain and simple. I then ask them, what specifically, after what we've gone through, makes you confident that this can get you where you want to be? That's them tying down their belief that this can help them. Then I ask them, and like when it actually comes to how important this is for you to make the change, like what are some of the biggest reasons why you want to do this? Because of XYZ. So now they've told me they know it can get them to their goal. This is why it can get them to their goal. It's important to them, and they still want to make this work. That's like, this is so critical, because only then will I say, okay, I suppose like with you mentioning there that this is the first time you've ever done something like this, then I go into the reframe, depending on what they've said. Now, the way in which you know when to re-pitch the price effectively or go back for a buy-in is, let me use this as an example. Let's use this exact example we've just gone through, right? You said it was the first time.
Yeah.
If you want to make your life easier, you can just use an analogy rather than a personal situation or scenario. If you are confident enough, it's always going to be more powerful if you get them to give you a genuinely real personal story about when they've done something like this for themselves in the past. So if you want to go the easy route, just do the bicycle analogy, right? If you want to go slightly more difficult route, but it could have a better payoff, is say to them, well, has there been a time before now where you were uncertain, you were hesitant, you were perhaps a bit anxious, even scared, but you actually went and did something for the first time regardless? Boom. You walk them through this story, right? You get them to describe it, explain it. Then you get them to unpack. If you allow like that initial fear and uncertainty to stop you from actually first trying anything, will you ever build the confidence that you're looking for? No. What impact will that then have then on your life if you continue to let that fear hold you back? Well, I won't be able to get to my goals. This will show up. This will show up. Is that fair for yourself and your family to allow this fear to stop you? No. Why isn't it fair? Because of X, Y, Z. So what do you now need to overcome so that you can take charge of your reality? You need to overcome the fear. Are you ready to do so though? Yeah. Why are you sure you're ready? Because most people would allow this fear to keep them stuck in a cycle. What's different? Because of X, Y, Z. Like, see, I'm getting like a double tie down here, triple tie down. So shall we move forward together then and take this big, bold step? And for the rest of today, you can actually feel empowered with a smile on your face. Yes. Now, depending on what they've said, now you go back in for the close. And if I'm going to use the example you gave me, the exact way I would do that now, because I'm like imagining that we're in this situation, is I would say, because look, when it comes to the finances, that's the easy part. The difficult part is what we've just gone through here together. It's understanding that this is a big, bold step. It's scary, but you're ready and willing to take it anyway. And is this definitely something that you want to do? Yeah. Okay, because look, if we look at it together, I can take a look at the finances, we can see what we're working with, and we can come up with a plan that makes the most sense for yourself. Would you like to go forward with that? Then I would open wallet on you, because you said that that was all of your savings. So it's unlikely if somebody says that's all of their savings that they're going to piff, especially if they've just given you effectively a fear objection as well. They've given you a fear objection and they've said it's all of their savings. But it's not worth like trying to piff them there. You would be better off easing them in to like the best case payment plan from that point. That's just me though. That's like the way in which I'd be thinking there. It depends. Obviously, it's super nuanced how the conversation went earlier, how you feel, and whereabouts the individual is. Has that been useful though? Just kind of playing it out in that manner.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Now, jumping back onto this raise framework specifically before you get into a reframe, I'll ask yourself, Connor, does that make sense? The steps that we have to go through here before we go for a reframe?
Yeah, and I think that's I'm not doing the I'm doing the isolation, but I'm not tying them down, saying aside from that.
Okay.
That's my problem. I've just realized I'm not saying, you know, is there anything else that's holding you back?
Yep. So you're doing these
Because what
two.
happens is I'm doing it, and then at the end they go, "Oh yeah, but also my gran broke her leg last
Yep.
week, so yeah." And I'm like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
So I've
there you
not
go.
done the. Apart from that, is there anything else?
Yeah. So you've been relaxing like this, you've been assessing what the real objection is, but then we've just been missing this in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is super important for that exact reason.
I've realized that
Because
because I do like 10-minute objection handle. They go, "Oh yeah, but my gran, yeah, she ate a sandwich and was sick last week, so can't do it." It's like, yeah, okay, fine.
And you're like, God damn, if I'd isolated the gran objection earlier, I'd be in a better spot. But it's so true because this sounds, I always think, what's the most positive way for me to word this without it sounding really like negative or belittling. When most people get to the point where you drop price, their self-defense system is just going to the maximum. They're thinking, their brain is saying, oh my God, I'm really anxious. I'm really scared because spending money isn't fun. Nobody wants money to leave their bank account. So now, how can we escape this situation is effectively where their mind is, because it's in fight or flight, really. So what this individual is doing, whether it's like fully consciously or partly subconsciously, is thinking of all of these excuses that they could possibly use to get out of the situation, effectively. Tom.
With my piff the other day, I could tell that was happening. Like he was just like saying loads of random things about like what like these problems that are going to happen once he's achieved the goal and stuff. I don't know if this is like conventional, but I basically just said, all right, cool, like pause, time out. And then I said to him, I literally broke into the psychology. I was like, your amygdala in your brain is going off and it's responsible for fight or flight. And right now it's just like, it's going crazy. And he just like, he heard that and he just like, it was like a massive weight off his shoulders. And then we just the conversation just slowed down. We picked apart the things he said and then moved forward. I don't think I do it with everyone, but like when it's really going off and you can tell that they're like racing, I found that just doing like the timeout thing actually worked really well.
Yeah, no, really good, because that's something that people don't do as often as they can. I'm telling you right now, in natural human conversations, that's effectively a pattern interrupt. The vast majority of people, I don't think I've ever had somebody not resonate with it, because if anything, it just leaves them slightly confused at first. If I say, like, because I've done it before where I've noticed someone's posture and their body language went way off, and I just went, look, can we just put a pause on the conversation? And they'll always just say, like, what? They won't have a fucking clue what you even mean. And then I'll say, I'm just noticing, obviously, just honestly from the way you sat and just your breathing, it's gone like a little bit shallow. Like, are you feeling quite uncomfortable now? And they're like, yeah. And I'd say, look, dude, at the end of the day, you do not need to make a decision right now. In fact, you don't necessarily need to do anything. You know, I'm sat here, you're sat there. We've just had this conversation together. What I will ask you though, after everything we've gone through, and like there you go, you see how I'm like naturally going to go back into what I was going to say, but I've now just detached them from this super high pressurized environment, and I'm now covertly influencing them back into the exact same questions and frame that I was just going to take them down anyway. But putting those like pattern interrupts and those breaks in will sometimes be the key that you need to do in order to put them into a resonant state in which the individual goes from obstacle-based thinking to solution-based thinking. Because if somebody is remaining in fight or flight, their brain is going to stay in obstacle-based thinking. And the whole purpose of this RAISE framework is to take them from that to solution-based thinking. And you do that finally with this portion, which is creating cognitive dissonance with the current pattern of behavior that they're holding. That's all you're doing. You're effectively having this individual realize the way in which they've made decisions up to now, and if they continue making decisions that way, it will actually stop them from ever being able to become the person they want to be or achieve the goals that they've set for themselves. That's what we need to construct for this individual. Now, I was on a point that I wanted to hammer home where I was mentioning how, oh yeah, all I was going to reference before you asked the question, Tom, was when you're in objections, these individuals are coming up with effectively any reason or any excuse as to how they can escape the situation. So what we are doing is effectively pinning them down on the real reason that logically makes any sense as to why they can't do this. And if you get somebody to the point via this isolation where they can't say that their nan is choking on a sandwich anymore because you've isolated it, then now you can handle it because they don't have any other way out besides just straight up bullshitting you. And if somebody tries to straight up bullshit you after you've gone through this, you can see right through it and you can just be straight with them. That's what I've done to people before. I've said, like, I've literally said, like, look, obviously I've done everything I can to help you at this point, and I've genuinely tried my best. What I will say though is, after what we've just spoken about here, like, are you going to genuinely tell yourself that the reason as to why you can't move forward is because of XYZ? Or are you open and willing to at least have a genuine conversation about what the real issue is so that we could try and resolve it together? At that point, I mean, I'll stop sharing for a moment. Usually in the conversation at that point, this is where sales resistance is going to be reaching a pinnacle, right? If somebody's really pressed you on objections, the bungee jump analogy I use, which I should copyright, is the best analogy I think you could ever use to flip it on someone. And is everyone here aware of the bungee jump analogy about taking your friend to the bungee jump? No. Okay, so I've like used this a lot. If in objections, which does happen quite frequently, someone pushes back, they're effectively trying to flip it onto you, and they say, look, dude, like, I know you're trying to get the sale. I know you're trying to push to get me to pay today. They come up with all these things, right, where they're basically trying to put it onto you, not onto themselves. I would then say, oh, well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a decision for you to make for yourself. Like, no decision needs to be made necessarily on this call. No decision needs to be made in a week, a month, or a year. I mean, heck, over the last 3 years for yourself with you wanting to do something like this, right? We could continue that same way. What I will say, though, is imagine this. Say a friend came to you, right? X length of time ago that they told me they've wanted to achieve this goal. So it would be, say a friend came to you 3 years ago, right? And they told you that they've been wanting to go bungee jumping for X length of time, but they just haven't been able to bring themselves to do it. Can you go with them? So you jump in the car, you drive to the bungee jump location with your friend. You watch them as they put the harness on, as they get all the equipment on, as they walk to the edge. And then the guy counts them down, 3, 2, 1, and then they freeze. And then your friend looks back at you and says, look, Tom, I can't do it. I can't jump. Now I've looked down. It's way too scary. I'm really scared. Are you going to be the friend who just says, oh, whatever, let's just go home? How come? So I can tell you right now, I'm never going to be the guy who says, let's just go home, when I can see somebody is so close to finally achieving their goals that they've wanted to accomplish at X length of time. And I hope you can appreciate that. There is no way in which you can fight me on that, right? There's no way. I have completely framed everything now within your interest. And I've also framed it in there's a better word I'm trying to think of, but a positive light, right? I'm doing this from a productive angle. It's an empowering angle. That's where I'm coming from using that analogy. And at that point, there's no argument somebody can make besides to say, okay, no, I mean, I get where you're coming from. And obviously it depends how the conversation went from there, but I always then end up, if you feel as though, okay, I've really, like, this person, like, it's a burn the lead or they're going to never come back, I say, because look, I'm willing to block my calendar out all night. I'll sit here as long as it takes to help you get out of your own way. But if you're willing to give up on yourself then you're going to have to scroll down to the bottom right and click that big red leave meeting button. And then I'll just sit here and I'll say, so what do you feel be the best decision for yourself? That's it. And I've done that a ton of times. Most of the time, I'll be frank, usually if an individual's gotten to that point, they probably won't close. Like the fear is so powerful at that point. It's so embedded in them. It's difficult. But there have been a few times where I've seen that like shift in them, and they've been like, damn, this guy's like really fighting for me more than I'm fighting for myself. And like sometimes that's what it takes. It takes putting that conviction into somebody to get them where you want them to be. Has that been helpful though, to give you guys that pushback analogy? Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Analogy. Let me pull this back up. This would be just too much for us to go through on this call. Obviously, this is where the raise framework gets more complex from there, because there's so many different objections somebody can go down, right? However, if you compartmentalize objections, there isn't. There's only 3 buckets of objections somebody can be in. It's fear, and all that can be of is fear because they failed in the past. So that's fear of failure again. Fear because it's the first time they've ever done something. So that's fear of the unknown. Or fear that something could be a scam. So fear of being deceived. That's it. There's no other objection that you can have there. It's fear, and it's one of those 3. Or it's logistics. That can either be time, which is macro or micro. So macro is like not the right time of year, Christmas coming up, wedding, photo shoot. Or micro, I don't have enough time. Or money. That's either they want to go ahead, but they don't have the funds, at which point you just open wallet them and then go for a potential payment plan. Or the worst objection that you can actually ever get, this is the hardest objection to overcome, they have the money, but they don't see the value. That's the hardest objection to overcome. Any other objection I would take any day over that one. Because this effectively means, if you unpack it and obviously make sure that's not a smoke screen, so it'd be like, do you believe it's not worth the money, or you don't believe that you could actually hit the numbers? Because if they don't believe they'll hit the numbers, that's not the real objection. That's a lack of certainty in themselves. So that's the real objection. But if they're like, no, I mean, I think I could hit those numbers, but I just don't really believe that it's worth the money that you've said. Don't believe it's worth the price. This is such a ball ache, because now you basically have to like rediscover them and just go right into a whole other discovery, basically, as to why they don't believe the value is where it should be, where have they gotten that concept from, where have they drawn the value from prior, bam, 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 vice versa, right? Or you have identity. I would actually say these are like the easiest objections. So the objection that you said, Connor, to begin with, I think that's one of the easier objections to overcome, because the objection they're giving you is an identity-based objection. It's, I always take 24 hours when making a decision like this. I have always done this when making a decision like this. I never make decisions on the spot, effectively, is what they're saying. I never make decisions on the spot. Obviously, you could basically just use this word track every time. I think this word track does work. Don't do this before you've done the raise, full stop. So it'd be, oh, I need to go away and think about it. When you say you need to go away and think about it, what do you mean? Oh, I just never make decisions on the spot like this, stuff like this. Okay. I mean, yeah, just play it. I just play it easy. This is where I say like my brain goes off and that I think like, would I just handle it there and then? No, let me just keep it simple. I then go, okay, aside from just not making decisions like this on the spot, things like this, is there anything else that you're holding me back or uncertain on? No. I'd go through reaffirming the value. So you definitely believe it can get you where you want to be. You definitely want to do this. Okay. I mean, with you mentioning then that you never make decisions like this on the spot, where, before you go into this I would say, where does that decision-making process come from? I'd get clarity. Get clarity before you reframe. I've said this a lot now, but it really does matter because they might then give you really important context just from that question. They might say, well, I actually invested in something a while back and I made a rash decision and it didn't pay off. That is so, we needed to know that. If we didn't ask where that came from, we wouldn't have gotten that gem of information, because then I'd just go down that now and I'd say, oh, okay, well, when was that? And how much did you invest? And what do you feel it was that actually caused you to not get the payback? Was it a scam, or was it more so just not quite suited or aligned to yourself? Unpack, unpack, unpack. We might now have a completely different objection that we can handle there, or that we would need to handle. Let's, for simple sake, say this individual said, I never make decisions like that on the spot. I said, where does that decision making process come from? They said, I've just always done it. Just always been that way. I'd go, okay. I mean, I can understand that way of thinking. Like, it's a big commitment, right? That would still be a big commitment in 24 hours, though, right? Yeah. And although me and yourself have only just spoke today, how long would you say you've wanted to become the individual that's capable of achieving X result, X length of time? If you'd made a change like this back then, what difference would that have made in your life? Well, it would have made this, this, this. So, look, if we carry on with the way of thinking that's actually brought us right here today on this call together, making decisions like you have done for the last X length of time, what is the future going to look like then? It's going to look like much of the same, right? That's effectively the only answer they can really give. So if this rule that you've actually set yourself has led you to the place now that we aren't fully satisfied with, would it be completely insane to say that you need to start actually thinking and acting differently to get a different result? Boom. So this really comes down to who you want to be going forward. Like, do you want to be the same Connor that joined this call an hour ago, who, spoke to myself about struggling with XYZ for the last 3 years and isn't fully satisfied with their life? Or the Connor that makes the decision to break out the cycle and step into the shoes of becoming the guy who does lead by example and is successful this time around? What do you feel is genuinely the most empowering choice for you to make that will give you the highest chance of success? That's going to be pretty difficult, right, for them to get out of once you've taken them down that. Because, like, the pushback that you're going to be able to give me, I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to handle here. And realistically, as I said earlier, the way in which these reframes and questions are structured is so that if you do give me pushback here, it's going to start to logically make less and less sense. At which point I can just get more blunt, really, with you as an individual. Because this is where people will start to say, no, like, I mean, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, I agree. It's just, no, I just need to take 24 hours on this. Like, that's just fucking nonsense. Doesn't even make any sense. You're saying you agree with me, but yet your actions are now completely incongruent with your own words. Like, so this is where you just get very blunt, because these individuals need you to start effectively taking authority of the conversation. So at that point, I would say, well, firsthand, I said this to Connor Gray earlier today on our one-to-one. Whenever somebody says, I mean, let me ask you this. I'll ask Ollie. When somebody says, no, I mean, I see what you're saying, what are they doing there?
Kind of like nodding dog a little bit.
Okay, elaborate a bit further.
I suppose they kind of just like buy into your frame, but not fully. Because like if you say, what was it you said, like roughly?
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not full buy-in, is it? It's like it's a half-assed like commitment into your frame, isn't it?
Not quite. Does anybody have an answer they think might be different?
They're putting distance between what you're saying, they're seeing it. They're trying to put distance between you and them. Is that what they're doing?
You're very much on the right track. Like this is where I think sales gets just so, I just love it. Think of the nuance in the language that I'm using here, and people will do this all the time. If I say, I see what you're saying,
Ah, they
what
don't
am I?
believe it. They see what you're saying.
I
Yeah,
see what you're saying. Oh, I see
it's
what
not
you're.
what I'm
Oh,
saying. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's not what they're saying. It's not what they're thinking. It's not what they're believing. No, I
Because
see
they
what you're
still think the
saying.
same way, don't they? They do. They
Exactly.
just, yeah. You're almost convincing them, aren't you? In a sense, but
It's
they
it's
still don't believe it. Yeah,
exactly. It's like you were on relatively on the same page with saying nodding dog. It's they are acknowledging what you have said, but they're purposefully not accepting it themselves. They're not compartmentalizing it themselves, and they're doing that by saying, "I see what you're saying," or "I get what you mean." Like, if someone says, I see what you're saying, or I get what you mean, I will always, and you have to do this without fail, I will go, well, it's not about what I mean. Like, what do you genuinely believe after what I've just said there? Or, well, it's got nothing to do with what I say. Like, what do you genuinely think after what we've just spoke about?
It's like what we say after we get an objection. Like you don't accept it, but you just like, I see what you're saying, but I'm going to your reframe.
yeah.
Exactly, because we actually aren't buying into what they've said.
Yeah.
Like it's like when that's actually a really good way to flip it, and that's I actually haven't thought of that myself. But yeah, we are simply acknowledging what they have said, but we are not absorbing what they have said ourselves. We are not actually taking in the information. We're just acknowledging it to then challenge them on it, which is effectively all your prospects are doing when they say, I get what you mean, I see what you're saying. All of these different externalizations is basically what they're doing. They're putting it back onto you.
That's so good.
And you can actually go even a layer deeper than that, which I haven't done this very often. There have been a very few times where I have, because I do believe this is quite difficult to bring up naturally into a conversation. But if you pick up on this, it's super powerful and it will really set you up. Let's say you're speaking to an individual about accomplishing their goals. When somebody is talking about the things they have accomplished or the things that they want to accomplish, you will notice a lot of the time that individuals will use personal language. So they'll say, you know, I mean, like, I want to make XYZ amount of money, and I've been doing this job for X length of time, and I was working really hard. I was doing this to get the house for the wife and kids. And yeah, I mean, it's really been tough. It's been tough, but I've put the hard work in. And you're like, okay. And then when they begin to speak about negatively connotated things, they will start to say, well, you know, like when you wake up in the morning and you're feeling really tired and you're groggy and you get out of bed because obviously just with the kids and the family, like you've just not had the time to go to the gym and eat a healthy diet. Like that is relatively subconscious, but people do this on purpose. Okay, maybe not on purpose. I suppose their mind is doing this on purpose. They might not be consciously aware of it, but individuals will use you language when talking about painful things that they feel shame around, whereas they will use I or me or myself language when they're talking about things that make them feel good. So if you notice that, and the reason why I say I've only picked up on it a couple of times is because it usually has to be quite dramatic. Otherwise, catch you later, Connor. Peace. It usually has to be quite dramatic. I'll wrap up in a sec as well. Otherwise, sometimes people do just use you language off the cuff, right? That's just how they speak. But if it's dramatic and it's obvious, like I have consciously picked up on the fact you were saying I, me, I when you were saying all this good stuff. And now when we're talking about you losing weight and being fat and out of shape, it's, you know, when you do this, you do this. I will just subtly say, when you're saying you, do you mean you or do you mean me? That's it. And then they'll have to say, oh, no, well, no, I mean like me in this context. I'm like, oh, okay, no, I just thought you kept saying you, so I was just getting a little bit confused. That's it. That's all you need to say, because now that's brought it consciously into their awareness, the vocabulary they've been using. And it's more likely that they're now going to correct themselves and start saying, when I get out of bed, I'm out of shape, I don't feel good, I feel tired. And that's way more powerful because they're now owning the problem. They're not saying like, you know, when you do this and you do that, because I don't fucking do that, dude. You do that. Stop saying me. I do that. I don't. I can't relate to you.
Bottom right though, it's quick enough.
Because what they are doing is it's the equivalent of someone taking the burden off of their shoulders and trying to share it with you. That's what they're doing. They're saying like, oh, like, you know, when, you know, you wake up and like you're feeling tired. And I'm like, no, I don't know that. But you're almost assuming like you're trying to normalize the problem. That's what they're doing. You're trying to normalize the problem as if this is something that is relatable, but it's not. This is an individual problem that you have for yourself, and you need to acknowledge that and take full ownership of it, because if you don't, you're not empowering yourself up for the highest chance to change. We got into some sauce today, boys.
Yeah, I'll fire that.
That's some
Really
high
good.
level sauce. To be a good
That thing you said was so good. So many people say that in everyday conversations. Yeah, I see what you're saying, which means they just totally agree. They don't agree with anything you just said, basically.
Yeah, and people don't pick up on it
Yeah.
because it's so nuanced, because people use you in like natural human conversation all the time. But like if you actually look at the language pattern, you'll notice that it is like it's purposeful almost. Because the moment someone says no, I completely agree with you. That's way more powerful. That's like such a binary buy-in statement compared to that.
Yeah, that's such a difference in it. So yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And it'd be the same with you with like fitness clients. Just think now when you're speaking to fitness clients, the amount of people you notice who are like, oh, like, you know, when you wake up and you're just feeling this, or oh, you know, when this, and you're like, what you're describing is a very negative, non-relatable problem. Or if it is relatable, I don't relate to it. So stop externalizing that onto me, because I don't feel that way.
Can you
That's-
can you call it out in a way of like, if they said, "Oh, I know what you're saying," because in my head I'm thinking I'd ask them back and I'd be like, "Cool, what am I saying?" And then I'd also go, "What are your thoughts on that?" Given that we've kind of established that they hear it but they're not agreeing, was that a route you'd go, or how would you get them to buy back into the original thing that you were saying and get them to actually agree with it?
I always say, oh, it's got nothing to do with what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
what do you actually believe and think after what we spoke about? Because like that's me highlighting the real point there. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with what I'm saying, because in a way, what they are trying to do is say like, this is your words, this is your belief system, this is your opinion, but it's not my opinion. I am effectively stating the facts. basically. So that's what I'm now putting onto them. I'm like, well, it's got nothing to do with what I'm saying. I am irrelevant effectively in this conversation. It's what do you actually believe after what we've just brought up? That's more important than anything else. Which is true, because the entire time, all I'm doing is framing everything toward them. Like, I don't care if you pay, I don't care if you close, I don't care. Like, I am completely irrelevant in this conversation. I am just the facilitator to try to help you overcome yourself. That is what I am here to do.